The morning sun cast long shadows across the grounds of Windsor Castle, as Catherine, Princess of Wales, stood by the tall windows of the private apartments. Her fingers traced the condensation on the glass while she watched the gardeners tend to the roses below. The silence in the room felt heavier than usual, broken only by the distant sound of her children's laughter echoing from somewhere. In the castle corridors, William had been quieter than normal over the past few weeks. She noticed how he would pause mid-sentence during conversations, his eyes distant, as if wrestling with thoughts he couldn't quite voice. The weight of recent events had settled on both their shoulders like an invisible cloak that grew heavier. With each passing day, the diagnosis had come unexpectedly. What started as routine medical checks had evolved into something far more serious. The doctor spoke in measured tones, using clinical language that somehow made everything feel both more real and more surreal. Catherine found herself nodding along to explanations she barely understood, while William sat beside her, his jaw clenched, his hand finding hers in the sterile hospital room. Their lives had always been lived under scrutiny, but this felt different. This was deeply personal, affecting not just their public duties, but the very foundation of their family. The children, George, Charlotte, and Louis, continued with their daily routines, unaware of the gravity of the conversations happening behind closed doors. Catherine and William had made a conscious decision to shield them from the full truth. For as long as possible, the phone calls had started early that morning. Palace officials, medical advisors, and family members all needed to be informed. Each conversation felt like reopening a wound that hadn't yet begun to heal. William took most of these calls, his voice steady and professional. But Catherine could see the strain in his posture, the way his free hand would run through his hair when he thought no one was looking. She remembered their early days together, when their biggest concerns were media attention and planning their wedding. Those challenges seemed almost quaint now, compared to what they were facing. The fairy tale narrative that the public loved to tell about their relationship had always been more complex in reality. If they were at their core, two people who had found love and built a family, now confronting something that tested the very limits of that bond, the weight of their royal duties, added another layer of complexity. Public appearances had to be maintained. Official engagements couldn't simply be canceled without explanation. And yet every smile felt forced. Every wave to the crowd, a performance that drained a little more energy from reserves that were already depleted. Catherine found herself treasuring the small, quiet moments more than ever before. The way William would unconsciously reach for her hand during their children's bedtime stories. The soft conversations they shared in the early morning hours before the rest of the household awakened. These intimate exchanges had become their anchor in a storm that threatened to overwhelm everything they had built together. The medical team had been thorough in their explanations of treatment options, timelines, and probable outcomes. Charts and statistics filled their conversations, but Catherine found herself focusing on the human elements instead. It's the compassion in their doctors' eyes, the way the nursing staff spoke with gentle authority, the small acts of kindness from people who understood that behind the titles and public roles were two people facing an uncertain future. William's sense of responsibility had always been one of his defining characteristics, but now it seemed to consume him in ways that worried Catherine. She would find him late at night, sitting in his study, surrounded by papers and reports, trying to ensure that everything would continue smoothly, regardless of what lay ahead. His dedication to duty had always been admirable, but she recognized the signs of someone carrying too heavy a burden alone. Their closest friends had rallied around them with quiet support. Phone calls came at just the right moments, offering practical help with the children or simply a listening ear. The tight circle of people who truly knew them had closed ranks, providing a buffer against the outside world while they processed this new reality. The children's schedules provided both comfort and additional pressure. School events, sports activities, and social obligations continued as normal. Catherine and William made every effort to be present for these important moments, understanding that consistency and normalcy were crucial for their children's well-being. Yet each public appearance required careful planning and considerable emotional energy. Media speculation had begun to swirl, as it inevitably did when the royal couple's schedule showed any deviation from the norm. Palace press officers worked overtime to maintain appropriate privacy boundaries while managing public interest. The delicate balance between transparency and personal space had never felt more crucial. Evening routines had taken on new significance. The ritual of putting the children to bed, sharing quiet dinners together, finding moments for honest conversation became sacred time. These hours, when the public duties fell away and they could simply be a husband and wife, parents concerned for their family's future, provided essential grounding. Catherine's strength had always been quiet and steady, but William could see the toll this situation was taking on her. The way she held herself a little differently, carefully controlled expressions that didn't quite hide the worry in her eyes. The increased attention she paid to every interaction with their children. She was preparing herself for whatever might come, while still hoping for the best possible outcome. The support from extended family members had been unwavering. Though it came with its own complications, well-meaning advice, constant check-ins, and the weight of family expectations added layers to an already complex situation. Everyone wanted to help, but sometimes the sheer volume of concern felt overwhelming as Catherine continued to watch the gardeners through the window. She reflected on how perspective could shift so dramatically in such a short time. Problems that had seemed significant just weeks ago now appeared trivial. Priorities had crystallized with startling clarity, and she found herself grateful for insights that had come at such a difficult cost. The road ahead remained unclear, filled with medical appointments, difficult conversations, and decisions that would affect not just their immediate family, but their public roles and responsibilities. Yet standing in that quiet morning light, Catherine felt a deep appreciation for the love that had brought them to this point and the strength they had. Discovered in facing uncertainty together, the consultation room at the London clinic felt smaller than it had during their first visit. Catherine sat with her hands folded in her lap, while William leaned forward slightly. His attention focused entirely on the specialist who had become such a central figure in their lives over the past month. Dr. Sarah Mitchell had a way of delivering complex medical information that felt both honest and hopeful, a skill that Catherine had come to deeply appreciate. The treatment plan she outlined was comprehensive but demanding. Regular sessions at the hospital, medications with their own set of challenges, and a timeline that stretched into an uncertain future. Catherine listened to each detail, mentally cataloging how this would affect their children's routines, their public engagements, the delicate balance they maintained between private life and royal duties. William's questions were practical and thorough. He wanted to understand every aspect of what lay ahead, from the medical procedures to the potential side effects, from the best-case scenarios to the realistic expectations they should hold. His methodical approach provided Catherine with comfort. She knew that together they would face whatever came with careful preparation and unwavering determination. The drive back to Kensington Palace was quiet, as both of them processing the weight of information they had received. London traffic moved around their vehicle in its usual chaotic patterns, but inside their car, time seemed suspended. Catherine watched pedestrians hurrying along the sidewalks, going about their daily lives, and felt a strange disconnect from the ordinary world that continued spinning while her own had shifted so dramatically that evening. They sat down with their children for dinner, maintaining the family traditions that had always anchored their household. George shared stories from his mathematics class. Charlotte described a painting she had completed that day, and Louis entertained everyone with his latest fascination with dinosaurs. The normalcy of these conversations felt both precious and surreal, a reminder of what they were fighting to preserve. Later, after the children had been tucked into bed with their usual bedtime stories and goodnight kisses, Catherine and William found themselves in their private sitting room. The fireplace cast a warm glow across the familiar furniture, creating an atmosphere of intimacy that encouraged honest conversation. They talked late into the night about fears they had been carrying alone, hopes they barely dared to voice, and practical matters that needed their attention. The following weeks established a new rhythm in their lives. Medical appointments became as routine as official engagements, though they required different types of preparation and left different kinds of exhaustion. Catherine found herself becoming an expert in managing energy levels, learning to pace herself through both treatment sessions and public appearances. Their staff had been informed on a need-to-know basis, but the core team who managed their daily schedules required more complete information to coordinate the complex logistics of their modified routine. These trusted individuals responded with the discretion and dedication that Catherine had come to expect, quietly adjusting arrangements and providing support without fanfare or drama. Public engagements continued, though with careful modifications. Catherine's appearances were scheduled around her medical treatments, and backup plans were always in place. The public saw the same composed, engaged princess they had always known. But William could see the extra effort these performances required. Her smile remained warm and genuine, but he noticed how she conserved her energy between interactions, how she leaned on his arm just a little more than usual. The media's attention to their schedule changes had intensified, leading to increased speculation about everything from their marriage to their health to their future plans. Palace communications staff worked diligently to balance legitimate public interests with their right to privacy. But the constant scrutiny added another layer of pressure to their daily lives. Catherine's relationship with her medical team deepened as weeks passed. The nurses who administered her treatments became familiar faces, people who understood not just her medical needs but the unique challenges of her public role. They provided care with professional excellence and personal warmth, creating an environment where she could be vulnerable and human rather than always maintaining royal composure. William's protective instincts had intensified throughout this period. He accompanied her to every possible appointment, rearranged his schedule to be present for important conversations with doctors, and took on additional responsibilities at home to ensure she could focus on her health. His devotion was evident in small gestures, bringing her favorite tea without being asked, ensuring her favorite blanket was always within reach, creating quiet spaces where she could rest without interruption. Their intimate conversations had evolved during this time. They found themselves discussing topics they had never fully explored before: their individual fears about the future, their hopes for their children's memories of this time, their gratitude for the life they had built together. These late-night talks, conducted in whispers so as not to wake the children, became sacred time that strengthened their bond in unexpected ways. The children's responses to the subtle changes in their household routine showed their remarkable resilience and intuition. George, the eldest, seemed to sense that something significant was happening without needing explicit explanations. He became more attentive to his mother, offering small gestures of care and affection. Charlotte approached the situation with her characteristic directness, asking thoughtful questions that demonstrated her awareness of the family's shifted dynamics. Louis, still young enough to accept changes as part of life's natural rhythm, continued to provide joy and lightness that everyone desperately needed. Extended family members had rallied around them with varying degrees of helpfulness. Some offered practical support that proved invaluable, while others provided emotional encouragement that sustained them through difficult days. The complex dynamics of royal family relationships added unique dimensions to their support network. But the underlying love and concern were unmistakable. Catherine's perspective on her public role had evolved during these weeks. Each engagement felt more meaningful, each interaction with members of the public more precious. She found herself listening more intently to the people she met, recognizing in their stories and struggles a shared humanity that transcended titles and circumstances. Her work with various charities took on new depth as she understood firsthand the vulnerability that connects all people facing health challenges. The medical procedures themselves became routine. Though they never became easy, Catherine developed strategies for managing the physical discomfort and emotional challenges that accompanied each session. She brought books to read, music to listen to, and photographs of her family to focus on during difficult moments. William's presence during these times provided immeasurable comfort, his quiet strength serving as an anchor when she felt most adrift. As autumn approached, Catherine found herself paying closer attention to seasonal changes, to the way light shifted throughout the day, to the small details of life that were easy to overlook when health and time seemed unlimited. This heightened awareness brought both melancholy and profound appreciation for the beauty that surrounded them every day. The autumn leaves swirled around the grounds of Adelaide Cottage as Catherine wrapped her shawl more tightly around her shoulders. The treatment had been more challenging than expected, leaving her feeling drained in ways that went beyond simple physical tiredness. William had suggested they spend the weekend at their Windsor home, away from the constant demands of London, and she had gratefully accepted the opportunity for quiet retreat. Their children had adapted to the new rhythms of their household with remarkable grace, though Catherine could see the subtle signs of how the changes affected each of them. George had become her little guardian, appearing at her side with glasses of water or favorite books without being asked. His thoughtfulness touched her heart while simultaneously breaking it, as she recognized how much responsibility he was unconsciously taking on for someone so young. Charlotte expressed her concerns through art, creating drawings that filled their refrigerator and bulletin boards throughout the house. Her pictures had evolved from the typical princess castles and rainbow themes to more complex compositions featuring families holding hands under protective umbrellas of flowers and stars. When Catherine asked about these images, Charlotte would explain with 7-year-old wisdom that families needed extra beautiful things when someone was feeling unwell. Louis, at 5, approached his mother's situation with the matter-of-fact acceptance that characterized his age. He would climb onto her lap during rest periods, chattering about his day while carefully avoiding putting pressure on areas where he somehow intuited she might be tender. His innocent presence provided a normalcy that proved more healing than any medicine. The medical team had been pleased with Catherine's response to treatment, though they cautioned that the road ahead remained long and uncertain. Dr. Mitchell's latest consultation had provided cautious optimism, wrapped in realistic expectations. The next phase would require different approaches, new medications, and continued vigilance. But the trajectory was encouraging. William had thrown himself into research with characteristic thoroughness, connecting with medical experts around the world, exploring complementary therapies, and ensuring they had access to every possible resource. His study at Adelaide Cottage had become a command center of sorts, filled with medical journals, consultation notes, and carefully organized schedules that coordinated Catherine's care with their ongoing responsibilities. The decision about when and how to inform the public about Catherine's health challenges had weighed heavily on both of them. Palace communications advisors had prepared various scenarios, but ultimately the choice remained deeply personal. They understood the public's genuine affection for Catherine and recognized that her situation would resonate with countless families facing similar challenges. Yet they also treasured the privacy that allowed them to process their emotions without external scrutiny. Their marriage had been tested and strengthened in ways they had never anticipated. The crisis had stripped away many of the surface concerns that typically occupied their attention, revealing the bedrock of love and commitment that anchored their relationship. William's devotion had manifested in countless small acts of service, while Catherine's courage in facing uncertainty had inspired him to examine his own priorities with new clarity. Evening conversations had become their sanctuary, a time when they could speak honestly about fears that daylight made seem overwhelming. Catherine shared her concerns about missing important moments in their children's lives, while William voiced his helplessness in the face of circumstances beyond his control. These vulnerable exchanges, conducted in the safety of their private space, had deepened their emotional intimacy in unexpected ways. The support from their closest friends had been a revelation. People they had known for years revealed depths of compassion and practical wisdom that surprised and moved them. Longtime friends appeared with home-cooked meals, offered to take the children for afternoon adventures, and provided listening ears when the weight of maintaining public composure became too heavy. Catherine's relationship with her parents had also evolved during this period. Carol and Michael Middleton had become more present in their grandchildren's daily lives, providing stability and normalcy while Catherine focused on her health. Their practical support came without drama or conditions, simply the steady presence of people who loved their daughter and wanted to help in whatever way possible. The children's school had been discreetly informed of the family's circumstances, allowing teachers to provide additional support and understanding when needed. Catherine appreciated the institution's sensitivity in handling the situation. ensuring that George, Charlotte, and Louis could maintain their academic and social routines without unwanted tension or speculation. Public engagements during this period had been carefully selected and modified to accommodate Catherine's energy levels and treatment schedule. When she did appear publicly, her presence carried a different quality, a depth of empathy and connection that resonated with the people she met. Her work with charities focused on health and family support had taken on profound personal meaning. The seasonal transition from summer to autumn had provided a natural metaphor for the changes in their lives. Catherine found herself drawn to the beauty and transformation. The way trees released their leaves to prepare for new growth. The way nature demonstrated that endings and beginnings were part of the same continuous cycle. These observations, shared during quiet walks around their property, became touchstones for conversations about resilience and hope. William's role as a father had expanded during this time as he took on additional responsibilities for school runs, homework supervision, and bedtime routines. Watching him navigate these tasks with growing confidence and natural affection had given Catherine a different perspective on their partnership. His willingness to step into unfamiliar territory demonstrated a flexibility and commitment that reinforced her faith in their future together. The medical procedures had established their own rhythm, becoming as routine as any other recurring appointment. Catherine had developed strategies for managing the physical and emotional challenges of treatment days, while William had learned to read the subtle signs that indicated her need for space, comfort, or companionship. Evolved to include new forms of nonverbal understanding. Letters from well-wishers around the world had begun arriving at the palace, though the public remained unaware of the specific nature of Catherine's health challenges. These messages from people sharing their own stories of illness and recovery created an unexpected connection to a broader community of individuals facing similar struggles. Catherine found strength in reading about others' courage and resilience. The question of legacy had emerged in their private discussions, not in any morbid sense, but with the clarity that comes from recognizing life's fragility. Catherine spoke about the values she wanted to instill in their children, the causes she hoped to champion, and the kind of impact she wanted her life to have. These conversations, while sometimes difficult, had helped both of them focus on what truly mattered. As November approached, bringing shorter days and the promise of winter, Catherine felt a complex mixture of emotions. The treatment was progressing well. Their family had grown stronger. She had discovered reserves of courage she had never known she possessed. Yet uncertainty remained a constant companion, coloring every plan and every hope, with the awareness that some things lay beyond their control. The December morning arrived with an unexpected chill that seemed to settle deep into Catherine's bones. She had grown accustomed to the various discomforts that accompanied her treatment, but today felt different. The latest round of tests had been scheduled for the following week, and both she and William carried an unspoken tension about what the results might reveal. Their Christmas preparations had taken on special significance this year. Every tradition felt more precious, every family moment more carefully treasured. Catherine had insisted on maintaining as many of their usual holiday customs as possible, understanding that consistency would provide comfort for their children. During a time when so much else felt uncertain, the children's excitement about the approaching holidays provided a welcome distraction from medical concerns. George had become fascinated with the mechanics of Christmas tree lights, spending hours ensuring that every strand was perfectly arranged. Charlotte had thrown herself into craft projects, creating handmade decorations that now adorned every available surface in their home. Louis had appointed himself the official taste tester for all holiday baking, a role he approached with serious dedication. William had been in constant communication with their medical team, seeking reassurance about travel plans and holiday schedules. The upcoming family gatherings at Sandringham would require careful coordination with Catherine's treatment timeline. But everyone was determined to make the celebrations as normal as possible for the sake of the children and extended family. The decision to share Catherine's health challenges with the public had finally crystallized after weeks of careful consideration. The palace communications team had prepared a statement that balanced transparency with privacy, acknowledging the situation without providing unnecessary medical details. The timing of the announcement had been chosen to minimize disruption, while still allowing the public to understand any changes to their official schedule. Catherine's energy levels had been fluctuating more dramatically in recent weeks, creating good days that felt almost normal and difficult days that required all her strength just to maintain basic routines. William had become expert at reading the subtle signs that indicated which kind of day they were facing, adjusting their plans and expectations accordingly. The support network that had developed around their family had become increasingly sophisticated and reliable. Close friends took turns providing meals. Their parents helped with school activities, and trusted staff members ensured that household routines continued smoothly. This invisible web of assistance allowed Catherine to focus her energy on healing and spending quality time with her children. Medical appointments had revealed that while the treatment was having positive effects, the journey ahead would be longer than initially hoped. Dr. Mitchell had explained the need for additional procedures and extended monitoring, information that both Catherine and William received with the kind of steady resolve they had developed. Over the preceding months, their relationship had evolved in ways that surprised them both. The crisis had stripped away many of the surface tensions that had occasionally troubled their marriage, revealing a core of love and mutual respect that proved unshakable. They had discovered new ways of communicating, new depths of empathy for each other's struggles, a new appreciation for the partnership they had built. The children's responses to their mother's illness had varied. It had consistently demonstrated their remarkable resilience and emotional intelligence. George had become more thoughtful and responsible, often checking on Catherine's comfort without being asked. Charlotte had developed a talent for creating moments of joy and laughter when they were most needed. Louis continued to approach each day with infectious enthusiasm that lifted everyone's spirits. Public speculation about Catherine's reduced schedule had intensified throughout the autumn, with media outlets offering various theories about her absence from certain events. The palace's strategy of maintaining privacy while managing legitimate public interest had required constant calibration, balancing transparency with the family's need for space to process their situation. Catherine's perspective on her royal role had undergone significant transformation during this period. Each public appearance felt more meaningful, each interaction with members of the public more profound. She had developed a deeper understanding of the privilege and responsibility that came with her position, recognizing how her experiences could potentially help others facing similar challenges. The practical aspects of managing serious illness while maintaining public responsibilities had proven more complex than either Catherine or William had anticipated. Scheduling required constant flexibility. Energy management had become a daily consideration, and backup plans were essential for every commitment. Their staff had adapted with remarkable professionalism and discretion. Extended family relationships had also shifted during this time. The shared concern for Catherine's health had brought various family members closer together, creating new bonds and strengthening existing ones. The children's grandparents had become more actively involved in their daily lives, providing additional stability and love during an uncertain time. Catherine's treatment team had expanded to include specialists in pain management, nutrition, and psychological support, creating a comprehensive approach that addressed all aspects of her well-being. The coordination between these various professionals had required careful management, but the results had been encouraging. The question of when to involve the children more directly in understanding their mother's situation had been an ongoing discussion between Catherine and William. They wanted to maintain appropriate boundaries while ensuring that George, Charlotte, and Louis felt included, informed rather than confused or excluded from family concerns. Winter's approach had brought both challenges and unexpected gifts. The shorter days aligned better with Catherine's energy patterns, while the holiday season provided natural reasons for increased family time and modified social obligations. The beauty of the season, from early frost on the windows to the warm glow of firelight in the evenings, had offered comfort during difficult moments. Their charitable work had taken on new dimensions as Catherine's personal experience with illness had deepened her understanding of the challenges faced by the organizations they supported. Her interactions with other patients and families had provided perspective and inspiration that enriched both her personal journey and her public service. As the first snow began to fall outside their windows, Catherine and William sat together. In their living room, watching their children play near the Christmas tree, the lights reflected off the ornaments Charlotte had made, creating patterns of color and shadow that seemed to dance in rhythm with their quiet conversation about hope, gratitude, and the unexpected ways that challenges could strengthen the bonds that mattered most. The path ahead remained uncertain, but they faced it together. Supported by love that had been tested and proven stronger than they had ever imagined possible. Each day brought its own small victories and setbacks, but underneath it all was the steady foundation of family commitment and shared determination to face whatever came with courage and grace. The January morning brought news that changed everything. Dr. Mitchell's voice carried cautious optimism that Catherine and William had hardly dared to hope for as she explained the latest test results. The treatment had been more successful than anyone had expected, and while continued monitoring would be necessary, the immediate crisis had passed. Catherine felt William's hand tighten around hers as they processed information that seemed almost too good to believe. The relief that flooded through Catherine was physical as much as emotional. Months of carrying the weight of uncertainty had created a tension she had barely recognized until it began to lift. William's shoulders seemed to drop several inches as Dr. Mitchell continued explaining the improved prognosis and modified treatment schedule that would allow them to return to something approaching normal life. Their drive home from the hospital was markedly different from all the previous journeys they had made along the same route. The London streets that had felt like passages between anxiety and hope now seemed to sparkle with possibility. Catherine found herself noticing details she had overlooked. During months of preoccupation, the way sunlight caught the windows of buildings, the expressions of people walking along the sidewalks, the simple beauty of ordinary life continuing around them. The children were waiting at home with their grandmother, Caro, who had become an integral part of their support system over the preceding months. George looked up from his homework with immediate attention when his parents entered the room, his young face showing the kind of awareness that comes from living with unspoken concerns. Charlotte abandoned her art project and ran to embrace Catherine with an enthusiasm that spoke volumes about her intuitive understanding of the day's significance. Louis, ever the optimist, simply announced that he was glad his parents were home, and returned to his elaborate construction project involving every building block in the house. His matter-of-fact acceptance of their arrival, coupled with his obvious joy at their presence, provided the perfect tone for their family celebration of the good news they carried. That evening, Catherine and William sat with their children in the living room and shared age-appropriate explanations of the medical journey they had all been on together. George asked thoughtful questions that demonstrated his maturity, while Charlotte wanted to know if this meant more family adventures were possible. Louis was primarily interested in whether the good news meant extra dessert, a request that made everyone laugh and provided exactly the lightness the moment needed. The palace statement, announcing Catherine's improved health, was crafted with the same care that had characterized all their communications throughout the crisis. The public response was immediate and overwhelming, with messages of support and celebration arriving from around the world. Catherine was moved by the genuine affection expressed by complete strangers who had somehow felt connected to her journey. Returning to regular public engagements felt both familiar and strange after months of modified schedules and careful energy management. Catherine's first official appearance since the health announcement drew larger than usual crowds, with people expressing their joy at seeing her looking well and strong. The warmth of public reception provided confirmation of the connection she had always felt with the people she served. William's transformation during this period had been as significant as Catherine's physical recovery. The crisis had revealed depths of strength and devotion that had impressed everyone around them. His willingness to take on additional responsibilities, his unwavering presence during medical appointments, and his intuitive understanding of what Catherine needed had demonstrated a partnership that went far beyond their public roles. Their marriage had emerged from this challenge with a depth and resilience that surprised them both. The vulnerability they had shared, the fears they had confronted together, and the hope they had maintained in the face of uncertainty had created new levels of intimacy and understanding. They found themselves communicating with a shorthand, developed through months of navigating difficult territory together. The children's relationships with both parents had also evolved during this time. George's natural protectiveness had matured into a genuine understanding of family responsibility. Charlotte's artistic expression had become more nuanced, reflecting her growing emotional intelligence. Louis had maintained his joyful approach to life while developing a remarkable sensitivity to others' needs. Extended family members had rallied around them in ways that had strengthened bonds and created new traditions. The crisis had brought clarity about what truly mattered, leading to more meaningful connections and less concern with minor disagreements that had once seemed important. Grandparents, siblings, close friends had formed a support network that would continue long beyond the immediate health concerns. Catherine's perspective on her royal duties had been permanently altered by her experience as a patient and as someone facing uncertain health outcomes. Her work with hospitals, medical charities, and organizations supporting families in crisis had taken on profound personal meaning that would influence her priorities for years to come. The practical lessons learned during months of managing illness, alongside public responsibilities, had created new systems and approaches that would serve them well in future challenges. Their staff had demonstrated remarkable dedication and discretion, while family friends had shown the kind of loyalty and support that transcended typical social relationships. Spring's arrival felt symbolic in ways that went beyond the obvious metaphors of renewal and growth. Catherine found herself paying attention to the first flowers blooming in their garden, the increasing daylight, and the way their children's energy expanded with the longer days. Each sign of the season's change felt like confirmation of the positive changes in their own lives. The medical team that had guided Catherine through her treatment had become trusted advisors and, in some cases, genuine friends. The relationships formed during her most vulnerable period had created bonds that would continue as she transitioned to routine monitoring and preventive care. Dr. Mitchell's steady presence throughout the crisis had provided anchor points of hope and professional expertise that had made all the difference. Their charitable work had expanded too, include new initiatives focused on supporting families facing health challenges. Catherine's first-hand experience had provided insights that would inform programs designed to help others navigate similar journeys. The platform her recovery provided would be used to raise awareness and provide resources for people who might otherwise feel isolated in their struggles. As they sat together one evening, watching their children play in the garden while the last light of day faded into twilight, Catherine and William reflected on how profoundly their lives had changed over the preceding year. The crisis that had threatened to overwhelm them had ultimately strengthened every aspect of their family life, their marriage, and their sense of purpose. The future, which had once seemed uncertain and frightening, now felt full of possibility and promise. While they would always carry the awareness that health and time were precious gifts not to be taken for granted. This knowledge brought appreciation rather than anxiety. They had faced their greatest fear together and emerged stronger, more connected and more grateful for the ordinary miracles of family life that surrounded them every day. The quiet moment came on a Tuesday morning in late spring, 6 months after receiving the news that had changed their perspective on everything. Catherine was sitting in their private garden at Kensington Palace, watching William push Louis on the swing, while George and Charlotte played an elaborate game involving imaginary kingdoms and very real garden tools. The scene was utterly ordinary and absolutely perfect. This was the goodbye they had never expected to experience. Not a goodbye to each other, but a goodbye to the fear that had lived with them for so many months. A goodbye to the uncertainty that had colored every decision, every plan, every quiet moment between them. The latest medical reports had confirmed what they had hardly dared to believe. Catherine's health had fully stabilized, and the future they had fought to protect was truly theirs again. The journey had changed them in ways they were still discovering. Catherine found herself approaching each day with a heightened awareness of its gifts. From the taste of her morning coffee to the sound of her children's laughter echoing through their home, the simple act of planning events weeks or months in advance, once taken for granted, It now felt like a privilege she would never again assume was guaranteed. William's transformation had been equally profound. The crisis had stripped away many of the peripheral concerns that had once occupied his attention, leaving him with crystal-clear priorities that centered entirely on family and meaningful service. His approach to royal duties had evolved to emphasize personal connection and authentic engagement over formal obligation. Their children had emerged from the experience with a maturity and compassion that both impressed and sometimes saddened their parents. George's natural thoughtfulness had deepened into genuine empathy for others facing challenges. Charlotte's creative expression had become a tool for processing and sharing emotions in ways that amazed the adults around her. Louis had maintained his joyful approach to life while developing an intuitive understanding of when others needed extra kindness. The public had followed Catherine's health journey with a level of emotional investment that had surprised and moved both her and William. Messages of support had come from every corner of the world, creating connections with people they would never meet, but whose lives had somehow been touched by their story. This unexpected intimacy with strangers had deepened Catherine's understanding of the unique relationship between the royal family and the UAL people they served. The medical team that had guided them through the crisis had become like family. Dr. Mitchell's final consultation had felt more like a conversation with a trusted friend than a formal medical appointment. The relationships formed during Catherine's treatment had created bonds that would endure long beyond the immediate health concerns, reminding them both that healing involves much more than medical procedures. Their extended family had rallied around them in ways that had permanently strengthened relationships and created new traditions of support and connection. Carol and Michael Middleton had become daily presences in their grandchildren's lives, providing stability and love that had proven invaluable during uncertain times. The crisis had revealed the true depth of family bonds and the power of unconditional love to sustain people through their darkest moments. The palace staff who had supported them throughout the journey had demonstrated loyalty and discretion that went far beyond professional obligation. These individuals had protected their privacy while ensuring that official duties continued smoothly, creating a buffer between the family's personal challenges and their public responsibilities. Their dedication had allowed Catherine and William to focus on health and family without worrying about the details of royal protocol and scheduling. As Catherine sat in the garden that morning, she reflected on how the experience had changed her relationship with time itself. Minutes had seemed precious during the worst moments of her illness, while weeks had flown by during periods of improvement. Now, in recovery, she found herself existing more fully in present moments, appreciating the texture of each day, rather than always rushing toward future obligations and achievements. The charitable work that had grown from their experience was already making a difference in other families' lives. Catherine's involvement with organizations supporting people facing serious illness had taken on deeply personal meaning, formed by her own journey through fear, treatment, and recovery. The platform her story provided was being used to raise awareness about the importance of early detection, comprehensive support systems, and the crucial role that family plays in healing. William's role as a father had been permanently transformed by the crisis. He had discovered capabilities he had never known he possessed and had developed relationships with his children that were marked by new levels of intimacy and understanding. The months when he had taken on additional parenting responsibilities had created bonds and established patterns of involvement that would continue throughout their children's lives. Their marriage had been tested and strengthened in ways that neither had anticipated when they first faced Catherine's diagnosis. They had learned to communicate about fears they had never voiced, to support each other through challenges they had never imagined, and to find hope in circumstances that had once seemed overwhelming. The partnership they had built was now anchored by shared experience of the most fundamental kind. The couple's approach to their royal duties devolved to emphasize authenticity and personal connection over formal protocol. Catherine's public appearances carried a depth of empathy and understanding that resonated with people facing their own struggles, while William's engagements reflected his heightened appreciation for the precious nature of health, family, and community support. As the children's voices carried across the garden, punctuated by William's laughter and the gentle sounds of a spring morning, Catherine felt overwhelmed by gratitude for the ordinary miracle of her family's continued existence together. The fear that had once dominated their private conversations had been replaced by appreciation for simple moments that might once have passed unnoticed. The letters that continued to arrive from well-wishers around the world had created an unexpected connection to a global community of people who had found hope in Catherine's story. Families facing similar challenges had shared their own experiences, creating a network of support and understanding that transcended geographic and social boundaries. These connections had enriched Catherine's understanding of her role and deepened her commitment to using her platform for meaningful service. The seasonal rhythms that had provided comfort during the darkest months now offered celebration and renewal. Spring's arrival felt like nature's confirmation of the positive changes in their lives, with every blooming flower and budding tree serving as a reminder that growth and renewal were possible, even after the harshest winters. The lessons learned during the crisis had become permanent parts of their family culture. Regular expressions of gratitude, intentional time together, and honest communication about fears and hopes replaced some of the more superficial routines that had once filled their days. The children had absorbed these new patterns naturally, creating a foundation for emotional intelligence that would serve them throughout their lives. Catherine's final thought as she sat watching her family that morning was about the unexpected gifts that had emerged from their greatest challenge. The crisis had revealed strengths they had never known they possessed, deepened relationships beyond what she had thought possible, provided clarity about what truly mattered in ways that no other experience could have achieved. The quiet goodbye to their months of uncertainty felt both profound and peaceful. They were saying farewell to sleepless nights filled with worry, to careful conversations designed to protect the children from adult fears, to the constant awareness of mortality that had shadowed every plan and every hope. In place of these burdens, they now carried wisdom, gratitude, and an unshakable appreciation for the gift of ordinary days, filled with extraordinary love. As William caught her eye across the garden and smiled, Catherine understood that their story had become something larger than their own experience. It had become a testament to the power of love to sustain people through crisis, the importance of hope in the face of uncertainty, and the remarkable resilience of families who face challenges together. The quiet goodbye they shared that morning was not an ending, but a beginning of a life informed by deeper wisdom and sustained by proven love.